Imagine looking at a map, right? Like a map of a major city. And instead of just seeing, static rocks and water, you're looking at a living, breathing creature.
Yeah, a creature that literally breathes in wealth and exhales empires.
Exactly. I mean, usually when we look at historical sites, there's this expectation of precision. You see a ruined fort, the placard says, battle happened here in 1941, and you just accept that as the whole story.
Right, it feels really flat. We like our history to just sit quietly in its assigned secular boxes.
Yeah. But when you step into the world of classical Chinese cosmology, that historical placard suddenly feels entirely inadequate. And the source material for today's deep dive really refuses to let us do that.
It really does. So today we are looking at this raw pre-publication document. It's called a Spiritual Geospatial Historical Dossier.
Which is a wild title.
It is, and it's an incredibly unique document that insists we look at one specific coastal site in Hong Kong, specifically Devil's Peak and the Lei Yue Mun channel sitting right beneath it. And it wants us to look at this through multiple overlapping dimensions.
Right. So the goal here isn't just to recite a timeline. We're going to explore 5 distinct historical stories from this single coastal site, decode them through the lens of Feng Shui, and highlight the visceral hidden gems that you can actually visit today.
Yeah, it's very hands-on history.
Definitely. And, if you're the kind of person who loves uncovering multiple perspectives and having those aha moments about how geography shapes human destiny, this dossier is going to fundamentally change how you view physical landscapes.
To do that, though, we have to grasp the specific framework the dossier demands we use. We can't look at Devil's Peak merely as, like, a piece of real estate that just happened to host military or industrial events.
Right. We have to see it as a concentrated point of energy.
Exactly. In Feng Shui, there is this concept of the dragon vein, or lungmak. The Great Dragon Vein of Hong Kong descends from the Kowloon mountain ranges, and Devil's Peak is the precise position where this dragon's body makes its final above-water stance.
Before it submerges into the sea, right?
Yep, right before it hits the water.
And the channel of water, right at its base, Lei Yue Mun, is what the dossier calls the watermouth, or Sui Hao, of Victoria Harbor.
Exactly. The watermouth is the critical threshold. It's this bottleneck where a harbor's vital energy, its kai, either concentrates in pools or it just leaks out and disperses.
Oh, I see.
And local folklore describes Victoria Harbor as being shaped like a plump carp. And that's a fish that, in Cantonese cosmology, is famous for transforming water into wealth.
Well, that makes sense. So Lei Yue Mun literally translates to carp gate, right?
It does. It is a tight, 420-meter wide channel. It is the literal physical mouth of the carp.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the earliest documented human attempt to dominate this specific energy point wasn't by an empire or like a colonial power. It was actually by a pirate family who understood exactly what this landscape represented.
Yes, the Cheng clan. If we go back to the period between 1735 and 1810, the Qing dynasty was super overextended. They were fiscally depleted.
The old power vacuum.
Exactly. And into this massive power vacuum stepped a highly organized pirate lineage. In 1753, the patriarch of the clan, Cheng Xiang, built a temple right at Lei Yue Mun.
Right at the mouth.
Right at the mouth. He dedicated it to Tin Hao, the Empress of Heaven and Goddess of the Sea.
Hang on, I want to make sure I'm seeing the strategy here, because, a pirate building a temple sounds like this beautiful act of devotion.
Yeah.
But given the location, this was essentially a territorial declaration, wasn't it?
Precisely. What's fascinating here is how the pirates collapsed the sacred and the strategic into a single act. By placing the Sea Empress's temple exactly at the watermouth, they were claiming divine sanction over the threshold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in their cosmological framework, they weren't just setting up a base to tax passing merchant ships. They believed they were literally taxing the vital energy, the key flow, of the entire harbor basin.
It's like setting up a spiritual toll booth on a city's main artery. You control the mouth, you control the whole organism.
That's exactly it.
And the sheer scale of the operation that grew out of this spot is just staggering. Fast forward to the early 19th century, and a descendant's widow, Cheng Yisao, takes over the syndicate.
She is a legend.
Completely. The dossier notes she orchestrated a fleet of up to 1,800 ships and between 40,000 and 80,000 personnel from this base.
Which is just a massive number.
Right. Just for context, she commanded more warships than the Spanish Armada.
That is wild.
She defeated the British, the Portuguese, and the King navies, and eventually negotiated a voluntary surrender where she just, retired peacefully to run a gambling house.
It's an unprecedented outcome for a pirate in literally any historical tradition, but her unassailable power was fundamentally rooted in that early calculated control of the watermouth.
Yeah.
And for you listening, if you want to physically experience the remnants of that power today, you can go to the Lei Yue Mun temple.
Yes, the dossier's description of this hidden gem is so evocative. To get there, you walk to the end of these incredibly narrow fishing village alleys. Your shoulders are practically brushing the concrete walls on either side.
Oh, I can just picture it.
Yeah, and the air is thick with the smell of tidal, saltwater, charcoal, and, frying garlic from the nearby seafood stalls. And then the temple itself is surprisingly intimate.
It's not some grand imperial monument.
No, not at all. It's flanked by these old stone cannons that have been darkened to this deep rust charcoal color by generations of incense smoke. And when you look right through the main temple gate, you see massive modern container ships passing through the exact same 420-meter throat of water.
Wow. So the pirates thrived by skimming the energy flowing through the channel. But if we look just slightly inland, we find a different group of people who interacted with the landscape in a much more invasive way.
Okay, how so?
Well, they didn't just tax the water. They literally dismantled the energetic spine of the mountain itself.
Ah, you're talking about the Hakka quarrymen.
Yes, exactly. From the late 18th century all the way up to 1967, Hakka migrant workers labored on the rocky hillsides right below Devil's Peak. They were extracting high-grade granite, which was incredibly dense and prized across the entire region.
And this wasn't just for local village housing, right?
Right.
This granite was exported to build the most iconic, imposing structures of colonial Hong Kong.
Right, like St. John's Cathedral.
The Supreme Court building, the early HSBC headquarters, the British colonial building program had this insatiable demand for this specific stone. And the Hakka workers lived right on the mountain in these timber and masonry barracks, organizing this grueling industrial extraction around the traditional ritual calendar.
But if we look at this through the cosmological lens we establish, a totally different narrative emerges. In Feng Shui, the mountain isn't just a pile of rocks, right? It is the physical body of the local dragon.
Right.
The dossier notes that the Hakka quarrymen, operating within their own indigenous tradition, believed they were extracting dragon bones, or lungo.
Wait, dragon bones?
Yeah, and we should clarify that dragon bones is a well-documented concept in traditional Chinese medicine and geomancy. It refers to mineral substances collected from sites of highly concentrated terrestrial qi.
Okay.
So the Hakka understood that they were mining the sacred terrestrial animal that formed the energetic spine of the landscape. They actually had to perform rituals to pacify the earth gods, the local land spirits, to legitimize and apologize for this extraction.
Wait, so the colonizers thought they were just pulling generic stone out of a convenient hill to build a modern city, but in the indigenous framework, they were physically dispersing the guardian dragon's body.
Yes.
They were literally taking the concentrated terrestrial energy of Devil's Peak, hacking it into blocks and stacking it up across the harbor to make British colonial monuments.
That is exactly the irony the dossier points out. It was a massive redistribution of sacred substance, and the colonizers were completely oblivious to the energetic transaction taking place.
That is incredible.
And what's equally fascinating is how the extraction ended. It didn't slowly fade because they ran out of stone. It ended abruptly due to a huge political shockwave.
Right, the 1967 leftist riots. The colonial government was terrified that the explosives used in the quarries would be stolen and weaponized in the streets.
Yeah, totally understandable fear at the time.
So they just issued a blanket ban on explosives. The quarries suddenly had to revert to sheer manual labor. The costs skyrocketed overnight, and the entire industry just collapsed.
It left behind a massive void. And this brings us to another hidden gem you can visit today, which is the old quarry site at Devil's Peak.
Yes, if you walk past the warm, bustling Lei Yue Mun seafood restaurants today, there's this abrupt transition into severe industrial decay. You are suddenly surrounded by massive gray-white granite cliff faces streaked with iron rust.
It's a really stark contrast.
It is. You can walk right up and touch the smooth natural crystal alongside the jagged, irregular tool marks. There are unfinished cuts frozen in time from when the explosives ban hit, rusting iron rings set deep into the rock, and just this conspicuous, heavy silence. The dossier describes the feeling perfectly. It says, "You are standing on the bones."
Wow. But nature and geopolitics abhor a vacuum. The scarred, hollowed-out mountain didn't stay empty for long. It was quickly seized by the British military, which reveals a story about a fundamental misunderstanding of the landscape's nature.
Honestly, the very name of the mountain should have been a warning. It was called Devil's Peak, or Demon Mountain Moga Wai Shan. And I know in Cantonese naming traditions, you don't just call a place demon lightly.
No, you really don't.
That implies highly concentrated, potentially malefic power. It's a place where natural energy is so compressed it demands fear, respect, and caution.
Right. But the British military, acting purely on secular strategic logic, recognized the exact same geographic reality that the Feng Shui masters did. They saw that this peak was the ultimate control point of the Eastern Gateway.
Right, the tactical high ground.
Exactly. So in the 1890s, they carved a cave directly into the granite headland to install what was then the Victorian era's most advanced weapon, the Brennan torpedo.
I looked this up. This was the first practical wire-guided missile in the world.
It really was.
They hewed a slipway out of the very rock the Hakka had been quarrying, specifically to launch this high-tech torpedo to defend the channel against massive warships. They also built massive concrete redoubts and gun batteries right on top of Devil's Peak, anchoring this extensive defense network called the Gin Drinkers Line.
Which was conceptually modeled on the Maginot Line in Europe. They built a massive, visible, technologically aggressive defense system. In cosmological terms, the dossier classifies this as maximum yang energy.
Okay, I have to stop you there, because when most of us hear yin and yang, we just picture that black and white circle, right?
Sure, yeah.
It implies balance. How does a wire-guided torpedo become yang? And how does that apply to military tactics?
It's a great question. In this framework, yang energy represents things that are rigid, aggressive, projecting, visible, and metallic.
Okay.
So a massive concrete fort with heavy steel artillery and high-tech wire-guided missiles is the ultimate expression of yang. Yin, conversely, represents the yielding, the formless, the dark, the hidden, and the adaptable like water itself.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So the British project this massive yang energy from the peak.
Yeah.
But then comes the Battle of Hong Kong in December 1941.
Right.
The Japanese forces breach the mainland defenses. The British are forced to evacuate their final stand at Devil's Peak, retreating across the channel. The Japanese then capture those heights and turn the guns around to pound Hong Kong Island. But here's where it gets really interesting. How did the Japanese actually cross that channel? The exact channel that the Brennan torpedo and all this yang technology was specifically designed to protect.
They cross silently at night using small wooden fishing boats, sampans and junks.
Victorian precision guidance, carved into the dragon's bones at maximum cost, completely bypassed by wooden boats in the dark.
Yes.
It is the exact same method and the exact same kind of boats that pirates used a century earlier.
It is the perfect yin-yang inversion. The British assumed the threat to this threshold would be large, rigid, and technological, a yang threat meeting their yang defense.
Right, metal against metal.
But the watermouth was penetrated by the simplest, darkest, most formless method, a yin crossing. The landscape itself, in a way, defeated their category error. Formless water bypassed rigid metal.
And you can stand in the middle of that tactical error today.
Yeah.
If you hike up the Wilson Trail, you first walk through this massive Chinese permanent cemetery, thousands of terraced graves facing the sea, and then you hit Goth Battery and the Devil's Peak Redoubt.
It's quite a hike, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. You can stand inside these massive circular concrete gun emplacements where the stone floors are actually worn smooth in a perfect circle from the heavy gun carriages that used to pivot there. You can run your hands over the actual 1941 artillery shell pockmarks blasted into the walls of the redoubt.
Wow. So the military failed to hold the peak, but the land sitting just behind the peak tells an even stranger story.
Oh.
Yeah, the dossier shifts our focus inland to reveal how the destiny of a landscape can be entirely overwritten or paralyzed by a single linguistic shift.
This brings us to the area of Yotong.
Yes.
If you look at 1920s maps, the area was originally called swimming pond or fish pond in Chinese characters, representing living, moving water. In classical Feng Shui, flowing water carries vitality, right? It brings productive qi.
Exactly. But as industry encroached, petroleum storage tanks were built at the bay. And the written characters for the area shifted. The pronunciation, Yutong, stayed exactly the same, but the written character for swim was replaced in official records with the character for oil.
So it became oil pond.
Yes. And in Cantonese material culture, oil signifies heaviness, latency, and viscosity. It is the energetic opposite of flowing, living water.
But wait, I need to understand the mechanics here.
Yeah.
How does changing a written character on a map actually cause a physical shipyard or a neighborhood to stagnate? Are we talking about a supernatural curse, or is this about human psychology?
This raises an important question about psychogeography. It's really a blend of both. A name shapes human perception, which dictates urban planning and investment, which then materializes into physical reality.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, and in the geomantic reading, a space that is defined by blocked, heavy, viscous energy cannot resolve its identity without returning to movement. The government reclaimed Yaotong Bay in the late 50s and 60s for heavy industry shipyards, steel scrapyards.
Which is very heavy energy.
Extremely. But it suffered a slow, grinding industrial death. The structures were demolished in the 90s for a residential redevelopment that essentially stalled. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy of stagnation.
It just sits in energetic suspension. If you walk the southern Yaotong waterfront today, you can really feel it. It's fenced off, smelling of tidal mud, rusted metal, and seawater working against cracked concrete.
Just kind of rotting away.
Yeah. It's deliberately emptied, static land, sitting right next to one of the densest, fastest-moving cities on Earth.
It's eerie. But if Yaotong is a story of energetic suspension, the adjacent neighborhood is a story of active hostile energy and the human attempt to fight it.
Right next door is a ridge, originally called Mirror-Facing Ridge, a nice, gently auspicious name. But in 1903, a Canadian businessman named Rennie built a flour mill there. The business failed, and he drowned himself in the nearby waters.
Tragic.
Very. However, local folk legend loudly insisted he had hanged himself.
And that rumor instantly transformed the name of the area in community usage to Tu King Leng, which translates to Hangman's Ridge or Suicide Ridge.
I'm assuming in Feng Shui, naming a place after a violent death is basically putting a giant red flag over the entire area.
Oh, absolutely. It carries severe Sha. Sha is cutting, negative, inauspicious energy. A site permanently associated with violent death is considered fundamentally inhospitable.
It's like the name itself acts as a warning to stay away.
Exactly. But history forced an entire community to move directly into that hostility.
Right. In 1950, following the Chinese Civil War, roughly 7,000 Republic of China, or KMT, refugees fled across the border to Hong Kong. The colonial government had no idea what to do with them, so they exiled them to this isolated, abandoned site, Suicide Ridge.
Just dumped them there.
Yeah, they were handed oil paper for temporary shelters and essentially told to wait.
But temporary turned into 46 years, and what they built is a profound testament to human resilience against psychogeographic categorization.
So how exactly do you fight invisible Shan energy?
Through relentless community building and sheer collective willpower, they didn't succumb to the barrenness of the ridge. They literally carved roads out of the cliffs. They built schools, hospitals, and churches from the ground up. They openly flew the Republic of China flag within a British colony, right on the border of the PRC. The community, which became known as Little Taiwan, engaged in daily life as a continuous collective resistance against the Shah embedded in the land's name.
That's amazing.
It is. In 1961, the colonial government even formally promised them indefinite residency.
But that promise didn't last. In 1996, just 1 year before the handover of Hong Kong, the promise was revoked. The community was evicted, the buildings were completely demolished, and the site was absorbed into a massive new town development.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, but here's a crazy part about the name. The MTR subway station that opened there was given a sanitized homophonic name. It's still pronounced Tu King Lang, but the characters were changed to mean adjusting scenery ridge.
Right, so they tried to write over the Shah designation while keeping the sound. But the dossier's framework suggests that the clearance of the site was the geography's unresolved identity ultimately expressing itself. Well, a community that resisted a Shah designation for nearly half a century was finally cleared by massive political forces. And in Cantonese cosmology, grand political movements are not separate from natural energetic processes. They are an extension of them.
Wow. If you visit the Tu King Lang MTR station today and walk uphill, you'll experience what the dossier calls history achieved entirely through subtraction.
That's a powerful phrase.
It really is. You'll see a totally normal, modern new town built explicitly over erased history. But if you look closely above the new housing blocks, you can still find sections of the overgrown, narrow road grids from the old refugee enclave, just leading to nowhere in the brush.
Which brings us to the most crucial part of this entire dossier, the meta-analysis. When we bring all 5 of these stories together, the pirate empire, the Hakka quarrymen, the British military, the heavy oil of Tong, and the erased refugees of Cheng, a hidden code in the geography reveals itself.
So what does this all mean?
It means that conventional history, which treats these as separate, unrelated episodes in different textbooks, is missing the point entirely. According to the cosmological framework of the location itself, Lei Yue Mun is a cyclical, transformative gateway.
A gateway.
Yeah, it is a watermouth where energy must be released or retained, but never permanently held by one master.
The dossier says this landscape acts like a digestive tract for empires, not a protective shell. It metabolizes authority. Every single civilization that passed through was eventually erased or fundamentally transformed.
Just think about it. The pirates dominated the sea, but once they surrendered the gate, their power dissolved into a gambling house. The Hakka extracted the mountain's bones to build a colonial city, and then their industry and community vanished overnight.
The British installed their most advanced Yang weapon, only to lose to yin wooden boats. Tong lost its flowing water and stagnated into mud.
And the KMT refugees built a massive, thriving enclave on cursed land, only to be erased right as the political sovereignty of the entire territory shifted.
It's like the landscape never lets the same form of power pass twice.
Exactly. The carp gate swallows whoever tries to become its permanent guardian. It metabolizes them, converting each era's dominant power into the empty substrate for the next. If we connect this to the bigger picture, applying this cosmological lens completely changes how we study history.
It really does.
It forces us away from just memorizing dates and treaties and asks us to consider how the deep geographic identity of a place actively participates in the human drama played out on top of it.
That reframing is just brilliant. And what I love most is that the dossier points out that historians haven't solved everything here. There are specific lingering gaps in the historical record that you, the listener, could actually investigate if you wanted to.
Oh, for sure.
For instance, the exact genealogical records of those Hakka quarrymen. They aren't sitting in standard university textbooks, but they might be preserved in local Hakka Clan Association archives, just waiting to be translated.
Or that 1961 colonial government promise of indefinite residency to the Cheng refugees.
Yes. It's cited in almost every article about the area, but can you actually track down the primary source document in the Hong Kong Public Records Office? The history is still active, still waiting to be fully uncovered.
And it leaves us with something very immediate to consider about our own daily surroundings. Look around your own city. What local neighborhoods carry a subtle Sha or negative name?
Right.
Where is the energetic water mouth of your region where wealth seems to pool or drain away? Are you living in a place that shelters you? Or, like Devil's Peak, are you living in a place that is secretly metabolizing you?
It brings us right back to where we started. Geography isn't just static rocks, concrete, and water. It is a living, breathing creature. And sometimes you don't realize you're just living in its mouth. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep questioning the ground beneath your feet.